Okay, let's talk about one of the biggest hurdles any student faces, nailing down that perfect daily routine. And I don't mean some crazy, miserable schedule. I mean one that actually works for you, giving you better focus, more energy, and yeah, even more free time.
How many times have you said this to yourself? You set that alarm for 5 a.m. You've got this grand vision of a super productive day. And then, tomorrow happens. You hit snooze, you start scrolling, and before you know it, the day's over and you're just left with that feeling of regret. Well, if that sounds familiar, you're definitely not alone. And that cycle, it ends today.
So I want you to think about it like this. A good routine isn't supposed to feel like a prison. It's more like your brain's operating system. You know, without a stable OS, things crash, you burn out. A solid routine is what keeps everything running smoothly and prevents those system failures.
Which brings us to what I call the daily routine trap. You know, the truth is, most students don't struggle because they're not smart enough. It's almost always because they just haven't figured out how to structure their time in a way that actually works.
And let's get one thing straight right now. The goal here is not some insane 18-hour-a-day study marathon. That just leads to burnout and misery. No, we're talking about building a balanced, sustainable system that you can actually stick with in real life, one that gets you real, tangible results.
All right, let's kick things off where it counts the most, your morning. Seriously, how you start your day pretty much sets the stage for everything else. This is your golden window for deep, focused work, and it's where you have the most control.
The first 5 minutes after you wake up are absolutely crucial. And what you don't do is maybe even more important. Do not check your phone. Reaching for your phone first thing is like opening your front door and letting 100 strangers shout their anxieties and to-do lists at you. Instead, just do these 3 simple things to gently wake up your body and your mind.
Now here's a great way to think about it. You don't need a full-on workout. We're talking 5 minutes of light movement, a little stretching, maybe a few push-ups. Why? Because your body is like the Wi-Fi router, and your brain is the device trying to connect. If the router isn't on and working right, you're not getting a good signal. That little bit of movement gets blood and oxygen flowing to your brain, making you sharper, instantly.
And this right here, this is the golden rule of studying. Your brain is at its absolute peak in the morning, so wasting that prime time scrolling through social media is just a massive strategic error. Honestly, 1 hour of focused study when your brain is fresh is worth way more than 3 hours when you're exhausted at night. So use this time for your hardest subjects.
So how do you actually structure that morning session? The Pomodoro method is going to be your best friend. It's simple. 50 minutes of deep, no distractions focus. Then, and this is the most important part, a 10-minute true break. That means no phone, no screens. Get up, stretch, look out a window, do literally anything else. You have to give your brain actual rest, not just a different kind of stimulation.
Okay, so what about the afternoon? This is usually when your focus starts to take a nosedive and you feel that sleepiness kicking in. But hey, instead of fighting against it, let's learn how to work with it.
You know, during your classes, the difference between actually remembering something and it going in one ear and out the other, it comes down to active versus passive learning. Passive learning is like tossing seeds on concrete and hoping they grow. It's just not going to happen. But active learning, where you're taking notes in your own words, asking questions, that's like properly planting those seeds. It's what makes knowledge stick.
And to beat that classic post-lunch slump, what you eat really matters. A heavy, greasy meal just diverts all your energy to your stomach, leaving your brain feeling foggy. But a light, nutritious lunch does the opposite. Afterwards, you can literally hit the reset button on your brain with a quick 20-minute power nap or even just a 10-minute walk outside. It makes a huge difference.
The whole key here is to use your afternoon brain for what it's good at. It's naturally a little slower, so don't try to force it to learn some complex new theory. Instead, use this time for hands-on stuff, for practice. You know, solving problems, writing an essay draft, reviewing flashcards. This is your time for doing, not for intense, heavy-duty thinking.
So now we're in the evening. This part of the day isn't about cramming in more work. It's about being smart, winding down, and locking in everything you learned earlier.
Your evening reset should have 3 main ingredients. First, some movement. Studies show that exercise actually sharpens your memory. Second, something creative. A hobby is like a pressure release valve that prevents you from burning out. And finally, a quick, light review of your notes from the day to make sure it all sinks in. And that brings us to the final piece of the puzzle, the night. This is your chance to totally reset your system and set yourself up for another focused, productive day tomorrow. This little 5-minute habit is an absolute game changer.
See, your brain has this annoying habit of constantly worrying about all the stuff you have to do, which keeps you up at night. But when you write down a very specific plan for tomorrow, you're basically telling your brain, hey, I got this, you can switch off now. It just lets you properly relax.
Okay, this next one can be tough, I get it, but it is non-negotiable if you want good sleep. We're calling it a digital sunset. The blue light from your phone and laptop literally tricks your brain into thinking it's still daytime, which messes up your sleep. You gotta put the screens away and replace that time with something calming, like reading an actual book or listening to some music.
Just let this idea really sink in for a second. Sacrificing sleep to cram is probably the single worst trade-off a student can make. Think about it. Studying is like entering data into the computer. But sleep? Sleep is the save button. If you don't hit save, all that work you just did, it's gone. You are literally throwing away your own hard work.
So, what's the magic number? You're aiming for 7 to 8 hours of quality sleep. This is not a luxury, okay? It is a core part of the learning process itself. It's how you make memories stick and how you make sure your brain is firing on all cylinders the next day.
So, we've laid out the perfect routine. But here's the thing, even the most perfect schedule on the planet is pretty much useless if you don't have the right mindset to go with it.
And this right here is the biggest trap that students fall into time and time again. You have to stop comparing how many hours you study to what other people claim they're doing. Seriously, your goal is not quantity. It is all about the quality of your focus and, more importantly, your consistency day in and day out.
If you take away only one thing from all this, let it be this quote right here. Consistency beats intensity every single time. It is so much better to study for a focused 4 hours every day than to pull a crazy 12-hour session and then be completely useless for the next 2 days. Slow and steady really does win the race.
So let's end where we started. Your daily routine is the operating system for your success. It runs everything: your focus, your energy, your results. Looking at this whole framework we just walked through, maybe it's time to ask yourself, is it time for an upgrade?